Good evening, everyone. This is Mike from Junkion Crafts and Builds, but for tonight, I'm going to be number 75. And we're kind of in the midst of a lot of things going on here. It's a very busy month in June here, and it's exceptionally hot here in Maryland. But tonight, that's not the issue or anything that we want to talk about. Tonight, we're going to be talking about another awesome Kickstarter. Now, a week or so ago, I had on the team from Patriot Force and talking about their Kickstarter. And tonight, I am honored to have a return guest, a figure action alum, to talk about another Kickstarter this evening that I think a lot of you guys will be interested in. Excuse me. But first, a little housekeeping. Like I said, we are in the midst of Yojo June. We just had Joe Fest end this past weekend, and now we have the DFW GI Joe and action figure show this weekend. So there's going to be a lot more information, a lot of content coming across this week and the rest of and over in the weekend here. But stick by here on the channel. I'm going to have some really cool stuff to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Got some figures that I've been going through and getting my impressions about, but we're also going to have another live stream with a couple guests and a panel to discuss a very interesting topic that I find hasn't been talked about enough, but maybe this is the right time, is G.I. Joe and Hasbro have been going through a bit of a renaissance with the classified series, but what they haven't really tapped on is the different medias that are available, specifically the really successful comic book line from Skybound. And that also goes across with Transformers. So I'm going to bring on a couple guests and we're going to talk about that. But that's in a future episode. So again, as always, subscribe and click that notification bell so you'll know when that video comes out. But tonight, again, we're going to be talking about a really cool TV show that I was introduced to by our guest tonight. And it's been a fun ride, to say the least. But without further ado, let me bring on our guest, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gavin Hignight.
Ooh, hey, hello, everyone. Glad to be here. It's good. Thanks for having me back. You know, you were talking G.I. Joe, and I thought I literally was running from my mailbox to do the podcast because this guy came in, Dial Tone, which I don't know about you, but he was really hard for me to get. I had pre-ordered him twice. They had gone missing or canceled. So it's real. He's real. He's actually a toy. I can't wait to crack him open.
I still been waiting from Amazon to do anything with that figure, but I also brutal. Yeah, I don't get, like I said, Hasbro sometimes their pre-order or just their release schedule is so flaky. Like if you ever put a pre-order down and they give you a date, I always move it to the left 2 months.
Yeah, totally.
Because they always are early. I just received a Blowtorch in this.
Oh yeah,
well. So yeah. He's an interesting figure. I loved having that vintage toy when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But
I'm looking forward to seeing that one in hand for sure. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And I could talk you to your blue in the face about G.I. Joe, and I'll tell you that Wandering Planet Toys, of course, is a side hustle and a labor of love between myself and writer and producer Doc Wyatt. Both of us work in animation, and both of us have worked on different Transformers series with Hasbro in the past. And I can tell you that I harassed my bosses at least every 2 or 3 months about G.I. Joe while I was there because I wanted to write a G.I. Joe show so badly. But, that was, say, 5 years ago, and it's just that conversation was not going to be had. Yeah.
I agree. I think the last show I think they had was that, I guess it was a streaming thing. It was like G.I. Joe Resolute. It was kind of like
written by Warren Ellis. Yeah.
So
I love that. It's like a special 2-hour thing or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely, and it's actually a lot of more modern fans favor, because it's that more gritty,
Yeah.
streamlined, kind of show
Yeah,
compared
right.
to.
There's a place for that, I think. I think that's the thing is you know, all of us who grew up on the IP, we're craving more of that style storytelling, and there's ways to do it that don't completely alienate younger viewers. You can kind of walk the line, and
Mhm.
I think that special really did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like you said, it's a balance of paying homage to those that have been with the brand forever. Excuse me. And then, the outreach to try to get some new blood
Yeah.
into the fandom. I
Yeah.
mean, their last movie, I mean, with Transformers One, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I think it was a fantastic film. Um,
Yeah, no, it's the right approach, right? Is like, let's
yeah,
go for a completely new audience and just remember what this is supposed to be at the core. And I think they successfully did that. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Well,
got
I
to
want
say, too, I love that you're number 75 for this episode.
to. Oh,
Nice
thanks.
touch. Yeah.
It kind of harkens back to the year I was born, and just seemed right.
Yeah. Yeah. Who is
Right.
number one? Who is number 75?
Well, I also, like you, I'm a pulp culture fanatic. There's a lot of things, that I still go back and watch from not only my youth, but late '60s, '70s, things like that just constantly resonate. I mean, I can tell you multiple times, like I'll sit there and just bring up YouTube and watch old
Yeah.
episodes of I Love Lucy, things like that.
Same.
And
Yeah.
it's just, it kind of goes back to a simpler time where, like, all right, I just got home from
Yeah.
school, or it's a Monday night, you got
Totally.
your three channels to select, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
And well, and modern TV is so serialized, and it's like if you miss one, you're out, right? And
mhm,
it's kind of stressful in that way. And you can, some of the older TV, it's nice to just tune on an episode. You get a beginning, middle, and end. Often the
mhm.
good guys win by the end, and you move on. And there's something comforting about that for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's the whole idea of, as we were so trained in our youth, like, all right, you have this one episode, you aren't going
Yeah,
to see anything else for another week. Now you
totally.
have, you know, full seasons available, and people go through it in like a day.
Yeah, they burn
I
through it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know how and you can enjoy it, but then you don't remember it. It doesn't,
No, totally.
it doesn't fit in there.
Yeah,
Um,
I had heard that when Twin Peaks season 3 came out, David Lynch specifically told Showtime, these have to be one a week. People need time to digest it. They need time to reflect on it. So
mhm,
he made it part of the deal with them that, if it was to premiere on streaming, that they couldn't dump all the episodes. And man, that's just the right choice, right? I can tell you, as someone who I spent 2 years of my life plus a third year on this recent Gundam series that I wrote,
mhm,
fine tuning these episodes. I mean, we were in like, most shows is like 3 drafts and you're out. We were in draft 7 and 8 on things. It was so detailed. We really put our blood, sweat, and tears into the show. And then all 6 episodes just get thrown up on Netflix, and people stop talking about it in about a week because it's just
yeah.
burned through. And it's so unsatisfying to have put all that work into something, and it's just like a flash, and then move on to the next one. Yeah.
You think that most companies are producing, I guess, oh yeah, companies would understand, like, see the phenomenon that happened with The Walking Dead. Every
Totally.
week it was something, and it was serialized, but everyone was glued to that episode that night, and it
Totally.
was the talk of the workplace or anything else for
Totally.
that entire week.
Yeah.
So it's a lost art, I think,
I
because again,
agree.
everyone is so used to, it's got to
It's
be
just
now, now, now,
binge
and be
watching. I
move on to the next
know.
thing.
I like that Disney has been good about, like with Star Wars, basically a weekly release.
Hmm.
Um, Even with Andor, when they did the batches of 3, it made me start missing them because I just didn't have time to sit down and churn through 3. One a week I had the bandwidth for.
Yeah.
But I do like that, like when I don't know if you saw Skeleton Crew. I loved it when Skeleton
Oh
Crew
yes.
came out. It was like every week I had an episode to look forward to. Yeah.
Mhm. And it was a well-written series.
Oh,
It's just,
totally.
you got attached to these young kids and wondering, how slimy Jude Law is going to be as his character. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it was a fun watch, to say the
I
least.
agree. He was the man. I mean, the fact that you could never really tell where he was headed, and he played that so well. And we're not even spoiling anything for anyone, right?
No,
Like, it's
no.
so well done. I still am questioning his motivation. It's great. What a great show. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, a lot
Yeah.
of things are going on. We like I was saying with in regards to pop culture, we have the
Yeah.
big thing for me is the 50th anniversary of Jaws
Yeah.
is coming here very soon, and that's a special place in my heart because that's like one of our annual binge watch movies with my family. When
Love
I was
it.
younger, it was one of those like
Yeah.
Sunday. Hey, my grandmother's like, I love watching Jaws. Let's watch it and go from there. So it's kind of surreal to say it's been 50 years for
Yeah.
that because it
I
stands the
know.
test in regards to just the style that Spielberg had, the memorable lines. I mean,
Yeah.
they're ingrained in our society.
Oh,
So
totally. I could watch that movie once a year for sure. I love it. It's a masterclass in filmmaking. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you see the
Well,
Hot Wheels that they announced? Speaking of toys,
no, I had not seen the Hot Wheels
oh
yet.
man, there's a really cool. I think it's a Comic Con exclusive, but they might be selling through. You can tell I'm a toy nerd. I think they maybe be selling through Mattel Creations as well. It's a really
Okay.
neat little die cast of the boat, which I'm blanking on the name at the moment.
Oh, the Orca. Okay.
The Orca. It's a little Hot Wheels Orca and a little Jaws that goes with it. And the packaging
Get
is
that.
superb. Yeah.
Because
Um,
I picked up this recently.
oh yes. And
Oh, this
I
is
don't know
so
about
cool
you.
looking.
Yeah, I love when things mash up. So I'm like Hot Wheels and GI Joe together. Take my money. I love it.
Exactly. I'm hoping
Yeah,
they're going to make some more
I would love that.
custom vehicles. I mean, it just fits that thing, and it's on my desk, and I can just
Yeah,
fidget with that.
I know it's kind of hard. Like I bought that not Kickstarter, but the Hasbro HasLab Sky Striker.
Oh yeah.
And I love it. But space, right? Like it's just so hard once you get in that scale or that size. It's
Yep.
like, well, I have one spot in my office that I can kind of put that. And I don't know if you follow the guys that did the Skeletron.
Yes.
So that's like got the key king position in my office right now. The Sky Striker got rotated out, and the Robo Skull Skeletron got put in.
Yeah.
But yeah, the nice thing about diecast is you can fit them places. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally understand the whole idea of space as a collecting hoarder like myself. I have
Yeah.
his tank and a dragonfly, and for Valorous, I have a couple other 1/12 scale vehicles and space. It's a premium to say least. And then when you start like, oh, I can just army build this, and next thing you know, you're like,
Yeah.
well, they're in the boxes, so
Yeah, I
pull
know.
them out whenever I want
Totally.
to, or when I take some photography and such. But
Yeah.
yeah, speaking of, I mean, but
Yeah.
we've
Speaking of 1/12 scale.
yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of that, we're talking about your recent Kickstarter, and we'll kind
Yeah.
of breach into some of the other past endeavors you and Doc and the rest of the team have done.
Yeah.
But I want to give a couple quick shout outs to people in the chat. First off, as always, my close friend, the Titan, he says, Hail. Soyline definitely captured his attention. Awesome. He helped me out a lot this past weekend.
Awesome.
And I hope to return the favor with some other toys going on. We have Carrie checking in. Good evening, gents.
Good
Hello, Carrie.
evening.
And then another dedicated watcher of the Figure Action Podcast, McClowering. Welcome aboard tonight. So,
Ooh.
you know how we did it before with the figure reaction, and my style of interviewing is I like to have a guide. I like to have a bit of a display, and
Yeah.
I usually leave bringing up websites towards the end because one thing that distracts me more than my camera automatically adjusting the zoom is scrolling up and down on a web page. I think it's really distracting, and it's pulling attention away from the content and the answers that you are providing us as consumers. So let me just go ahead and bring up our topic for tonight. And you haven't even seen this yet, so hopefully it's not too
There we go.
funny, but we're going to have an evening with you, Gavin, talking about
Oh, I love it.
The Prisoner Ultimate Edition.
And
So,
it's very fitting that you selected this art, actually. The color palette of it. Because as you know, we've made Prisoner toys already. We're very happy at the response. We've done like a 4-inch Kenner style retro. But we knew it all along we wanted to do bigger. We wanted to do 1/12 scale, like G.I. Joe Classified or, Marvel Legends. And when we committed to doing the scale, we wanted consumers and fans to feel like this is a different toy than the others I've gotten from Wandering Planet. So we really looked at this art and we were like, well, let's pull from this color palette for the packaging of the 1/12 line. Whereas, anyone who's seen our retro style, it's like a lot. It's black with red trim based on the logo, the Prisoner logo. But we were thinking about this amazing penny farthing image from the end credits and like kind of the sunset kind of orange. And Jenny Moore, who is our just guru of package design, we showed that to her. We said these colors, and now we have awesome packaging that she put together. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly where I pulled this palette from, and it was kind of ironic that I was trying to do a search for an image of this just to kind of match it up, and I found it probably 3 hours before the show tonight. So
well done.
It's kind of serendipitous with it all.
Yeah, synergy there. Yeah.
But
and you have the Alvertus font. You've done your research. I've
been trying my best.
Yeah,
I like to be consistent. So.
Oh my God, who's that guy?
You know what? We got to get some updated promo headshots for you here.
Yeah, I know.
But for those that haven't watched our previous interview or watching on the replay, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about yourself. And I selected a lot of different things that you have been involved with that ranges an entire gambit of media, different brands, there were toy lines, but also like entire universes. So
yeah,
I turn the floor to you, sir.
Yeah, well, I've been lucky that, like many of us, I've just grown up on this stuff, and I love it to death. And I always wanted to work in film from a very young age, and moved out to LA and couldn't, it was hard to break in behind the camera, but I was just always writing, because writing it was just a muscle that I used, and is also part of the filmmaking art form that you don't have to have a lot of money to do. If you have a pen and paper or you have a laptop, you can write. So in my lean years, when I was just trying to break in and struggle to get by out here, I just kept writing and kept writing. And I happened across Mike Ryan, who was the story editor of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Fox. Remember the Fox Box, Fox Kids Saturday morning? That was the early 2000s Ninja Turtles series. And, he liked the stuff I was working on, and he gave me a break. And I worked on 2 episodes of the 2000X Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then there was a big gap where I was trying to hustle whatever would come next. And that eventually led to working with Marvel, with Brandon Auman on like Iron Man Armored Adventures, and led to some Spider-Man and Armored Adventures, actually, which is, I think, a great Marvel cartoon. That's where I met Doc Wyatt. Doc and his writing partner, Kevin, had been on a lot of Marvel stuff, and we were in rooms together and talked toys all the time and stuff. And just had the good fortune of knowing these guys and working on different shows with them. We got carried over with Brandon to the 2012 Ninja Turtles, which is still, I'll say, my favorite thing I ever worked on. I love that show, and I love the crew and the voices and the fellow writers so much, and I miss that team. And Doc was there with me. And we've gone on. We've done other stuff in more recent years. Well, I had a nice big chunk on Transformers, like we mentioned, Cyberverse and War for Cybertron. Mm-hmm. War for Cybertron kind of opened up the anime door for me, which, being an American nerd who loves anime, it's not lost on me how lucky I am that I got to kind of squeeze in through that door. And that's, I wrote Tekken, that was for Netflix. Mm-hmm. And then that led to Gundam, which I co-created that series and co-wrote it, and it's just a dream come true. It's on Netflix now. It's called Requiem for Vengeance. Mm-hmm. It's a different series in that it was made with Unreal Engine, so it's like kind of photo real. For better or for worse, the mecha look fantastic. The characters,
yes, it is a beautiful series.
It is, and I'm. I have actually behind me on my shelf, I have our Gundam and our Zaku from the series. And I'm taking those things to the grave, man. I'm being buried with them. I'm really proud of them. But yeah, so, life along, somehow a professional nerd. I worked on RoboForce pretty recently, which was very satisfying. That's on Tubi now. Nacelle Company, I think everyone who's watching this and your audience knows Nacelle from like Toys That Made Us. And mm-hmm. Brian over there is, just like you and I, like he loves this stuff. And so he's building out more and more. And I had the good fortune of working with him on Biker Mice from Mars, which is, being animated as we speak. Those toys are fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and on the side, Doc and I make toys now. Yeah.
Well, and that's the next part we're going to get into. But I also want to ask, like, how do you approach your style of writing, or when you're given a line or an opportunity to create, whether it's episodes or like a series Bible. Looking at some of the examples we have up here between Star Wars Resistance, Cyberverse, and again, I will agree with you that the Nickelodeon Ninja Turtles is by far the favorite series I've watched since. The original series was great when I was younger. It hasn't aged, but that Nickelodeon series, again, with the cast and the writing, it's perpetual. I haven't watched anything else. I haven't even watched the latest movie that they had out.
Me neither, to be honest. Or Rise. I tried to watch Rise because a lot of guys I know had carried over to work on it, and mm-hmm. My brain is kind of cemented in that 2012 universe, and Ciro and Brandon they had the magic sauce. You put them together on it, and what a special show. I think it's gonna 2012 is always going to exist, right? There's always going to be a fandom for it. There's always going to be callbacks to it. So yeah, I'm really excited. I don't know if you saw that NECA is going to do 2012 style turtle figures in the year ahead. Saw that. So and I'm just like, take my money, guys. Here you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, the tone of the show is usually set by the head writer, the showrunner writer. And mm-hmm. so I've had the great benefit of working under like people like Brandon or Randolph Hurd on Transformers Cyberverse. Or I worked for Doc and Kevin. I've worked with Doc and I've worked for Doc and Eugene Kim over at Marvel. I just had the great benefit of working with people who had a vision and knew how to, they set the tone on those shows, and my job was to write within the tone. And of course, you want to expand out. You have a voice of your own, and in Tekken and in Gundam is when I really got to kind of explore my voice more, respecting these are IPs that already exist. These mm-hmm. are characters that already exist. I was lucky in with Gundam because I was creating a unit on the other side of the conflict that don't usually get the voice that our characters got. Usually you're watching the Gundam and it's the good guy Our show was, you're watching the Xeon and the Zaku getting destroyed by the Gundam, and the Gundam is kind of the villain of our show. So, I got to play and add, I got to build characters more from what was in my head versus existing. Like Optimus Prime, you got to pay attention. You write him a certain way, otherwise it's not Optimus Prime, right? But so yeah, you just sometimes it's about coloring within the lines and doing what the IP commands. And if you're a big fan of this stuff, like we all are, you kind of have a sense of that. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, we've seen 40 years of Gundam. What's a way to approach this differently to feel fresh? So it kind of just depends project to project.
Okay. And I noticing a lot with the work, especially with like the episodes we show here, is you seem to have a good grasp on how to have an ensemble or a series of characters, whether it's a team like the Turtles or your work with the Gundam series. Finding that mesh, and like I guess how you were explaining it, you have some established characters that you know that everyone is going to have a certain vision of how they are going to be portrayed. Of the series that you worked on, I mean, besides where you were actually creating the series Bible for Gundam, did you have what series did you kind of feel like you had the most freedom to express within as you were saying, the tone of the series?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Turtles, one of the things that was cool about that show for me is that Brandon, who I worked for on it, he, I had the good benefit of working with him multiple seasons. And we had kind of a shorthand with each other, after a couple seasons, right? Like I knew how to deliver what he wanted. He knew how to ask for what I did best. And if you were to analyze my Turtles career, you'll notice I almost always get the Raphael or the Raph episodes. And I kind of feel like I got to specialize and get to know Raph better, played by Sean Astin in this series. And so I kept coming back to my relationship with Raph, right? It would be like, okay, I'd get to write 2 episodes a season. They were always like an emotional hook, with Raph in that episode. And then, for 9 or 10 months, I'd be doing other stuff. And then I'd get the call. Okay, I got a new episode for you. It's a Raph episode, So good management. And then also, I got to know that character really well. I understood like angry Raph. And, so I think that one I got to explore a lot. I can tell you the one that was the most challenging where I didn't. Tekken was extremely challenging to write. Really? There's a very specific, the game audience and the producers have such a specific vision of what Tekken is. And writing Heihachi was probably one of the most difficult characters I've ever had to write, but also probably the most rewarding character. When I finally cracked it and I finally understood how he would act and things, it was like a huge revelation. And, he's not a good guy. It's like writing a Darth Vader TV show, right? Like, how do you, these characters work great when they come in for a couple minutes and then they're out. But if you have to focus on them and really dig in, they're way more complex. Or if you do it right, they're way more complex. They're not mustache twirling. I will say that Turtles also taught me the group dynamic. It's so fucking brilliant, right? You get the smart one, you get the one that's like the leader, you get the one who's angry, and you get the one that's like comic relief. Every project I work on, I always kind of identify, okay, who's the Raph here? Who's the Mikey? Who's the Leo? And then, you start tweaking it. Well, what if, like, you put up my comic Motor City, and when I approached that, I was like, well, what if like the big heavy dude who's always comic relief in every other team or every other show. What if he's actually the leader? Let's break a stereotype here, you know? So Frank, the leader of the 133rd, if you were to look at it, you just assume, oh, well, the big heavy dude he's going to be the gentle giant, or he's going to be the comic relief. And actually, no, he's the Leonardo of that group. He's the tortured leader trying to hold it all together. So yeah, it just depends on approach, and you hear me speaking, everything I talk about is a reference, right? Because I just, we all grown up loving this stuff. It's funny when you're watching about TV earlier, I just completely binged. I had like a marathon of Hogan's Heroes last week. I watched, I think, like 9 episodes on Pluto. And it's the same thing, man. I mean, you could look and say which guys on that team are the Mikey, which are, Hogan is Leo. Richard Dawson is the I can't remember his character's name, but he's the Donnie, the Donatello. It's funny. These tropes are they carry through those stereotypes.
Well, with your most recent series here with RoboForce, I was looking at some of the names that obviously are providing the voices, but also the creative, I guess, minds behind the series as well. So, I mean, how is the approach with RoboForce in this series? I mean, being in this world, that you are in, writing and producing these shows, how would you compare the evolution of how a series is made from your sounds like your personal high point, which was Turtles, and then the next one with Gundam, where you had more creative control? How have things morphed with the release of RoboForce? Because you're kind of tying it with a toy line more, which is kind of what we saw back when we were growing up in the 80s.
Yeah, totally.
Compared to how a lot of these series and toy lines now, as I was mentioning earlier, don't really utilize all the resources available to get their product out to everyone.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and RoboForce is interesting. It's a perfect one for you to have brought up because it was unlike any show I've done. It was truly like an independent production. Brian, he made the show himself with Nacelle. That's his company, and it was like the wild, wild west in so many ways. It wasn't like when I've worked on stuff for Hasbro, you have this giant toy company and you maybe have a media division. And it's the same with Gundam, giant company with a media division. Same with Star Wars, right? Giant media company owns giant media company owns. So RoboForce was fun because it was more him and him letting me say, well, what's all the stuff we never get to do? What's all the fun stuff that we know because we're fans and we play with toys and we watch tons of this stuff. What's an approach that we never get to do because the corporation's playing it too safe? What's an approach? He wanted it. And RoboForce is very much, Brian had a real vision, but he really empowered me. He said, go off. Pitch me this universe for RoboForce. And so I came up with a pitch and a problem and how, and the thing that he really liked and he really wanted and he was really fascinated with was the real life story of RoboForce, which is these toys were supposed to be the next big thing. They were like the hottest ticket of Toy Fair the year they were announced. They were going to be the best thing ever. And then the next day, Toy Fair Transformers was announced and completely obliterated them, right? And just destroyed them in the marketplace. And orders were canceled. And it's a fascinating story that someone like Brian would uncover with all the toy documentary stuff they do. And he really wanted to see that mirrored in our show. And it really served our characters well because it's like, okay, here's these guys that were built to be amazing heroes. And then, something else more streamlined and cutting edge was built. And these guys have been losers for 15 years, even though in their hearts they know they can do better. I mean, with those like ingredients, how could we not write a satisfying show, right? But for me, it was great because I worked with, I co-wrote with Tom, and Tom came from shows like the movie Freaked and like The Idiot Box, so his approach was really different. And we just, like I said, it was the wild, wild west. We got to kind of be more independent. It was like the independent film of kids' cartoon toy TV. And that's why the show feels so fresh and different and hits kind of differently. It's dramatic. We don't treat kids, we don't pull punches on it, but kids can handle that too. Think of all the media we grew up on. We could handle Goonies. We could handle PG-13. I think kids now can as well, and we got to give them credit. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox, but thank you for bringing that up.
Well, it interested me because of some of the things you just said about the main heroes aren't really, aren't really at that level that they were expected to be. And when I watched the trailer for the series on IMDb, when I was researching a lot of your different work here, it was really one of those things, like I had to sit there and watch it again. I'm like, did they just make fun of the leader? And he's sitting there, and without going into it, but I mean, obviously people are watching this. Go look at RoboForce and watch a trailer for it. It's a pretty interesting series, and it's one of these things where I have my niece and nephew. They're 7 and 9, so this is one of the things we're gonna do over the summer. Is I try to show some older cartoons when I grew up versus them sitting there and just binging Mr. Beast or something like that. Right. And that's a hard thing to do because it's one of those things where it's so sporadic and just, flashing instantaneous to them that they just kind of go through everything else, but they don't remember what they just watched.
Right.
Whereas, show them a couple episodes of G.I. Joe or He-Man and, talk about the lesson at the end.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah, no, totally.
Here's what it is, and it kind of works. So,
yeah.
But I want to kind of finish off this portion here. But I also have, 2 examples here of some comic series that you wrote in regards to, like you were mentioning before, with Motor City and also with Alien Race. Can you talk a little bit about Alien Race?
Yeah, Alien Race is a bummer, man. So my buddy James, who I'd worked on Concrete World with, works as an editor, and he'd brought me in on it. And it was just one of those things. It was their idea, it was their IP. They owned it, the comic book company, who I'm actually blanking on the name of the company now. But we wrote it. It was a 6-issue run. And then the company, I don't know if they went bankrupt or just stopped, but it just died on the launch pad, which it happens, and this comic would have had a amazing toy element. And I say that as a fan, and I say that as someone who's making toys. It was a really neat concept. It was basically like, it was almost like, gosh, I don't know, Hunger Games meets Jurassic Park, with like genetic splicing in the future, right? It was really, but unfortunately, other than some beautiful concept art that made it out to conventions and even some posters and stuff, dead on arrival. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to bring it up in a negative light, but it's kind of like a realistic.
Yeah, no, totally.
Your career, you like you said, you have highs, you have lows,
or success,
and then there are those that are just challenges.
I will tell you, and I can't say a lot about it because we sign these NDAs and we have to. I just spent the last 3 years of my life writing a video game for a huge known IP, and got canceled 2 weeks ago. 3 years of work of getting approvals from our licensor, of creating characters that I was completely proud of. It just, the economy's bad. The video game industry is shaky. People are worrying, and funds get cut off. And, Yeah, 3 years of story, man. Just
Ugh,
into the void. Yeah. So
that's unfortunate.
when you work on these things and they actually get animated well, and they actually get voice acted well, and they actually end up on a platform or on a TV, it's a victory, you know. And I'm a lot, you know, I have opinions and there's shows that I do and don't like, but I always appreciate that someone fucking pulled it off, that they got it on the air, or that they finished it. Because
Mhm.
now that I've done this, you know, for a, you know, period of time, I just know how hard it is to land the plane, and you know, sometimes it's just not under your control. But yeah, win
Yeah,
some, lose some, move on to the next.
absolutely. And I think that's where we're going to go to next, because as you were mentioning
Yeah.
earlier, you met some amazing people in your career that you've
Yes.
had a chance to work with, and you've kind of branched out into another aspect of this kind of pulp culture, and it's the toy love that we
Yes.
have. So you and Doc Wyatt, which I mean, Doc has been an amazing collaborator for you for a lot of
Yeah.
series, as well as a renowned writer and such in his own right. And you
Yeah.
guys kind of come together in 21 and created Wondering Toys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We were like, oh, it's a pandemic and distribution's completely destroyed, and container ships are parked off the coast. Let's make toys. Yeah. Good timing. But yeah, it kept us sane, gave us something to do.
yeah, I
Yeah.
pulled this. I pulled a little bit of this little phrase here from your website, where you focus on it, retro aesthetic toys based on, and you have classic, but I like to say it's classy. It's classy pulp culture licenses, because it's something that everyone, when you refer to classic, sometimes people will view it as, oh, well, it's old stuff. It's not as cool,
It's like
but
old vintage. Yeah.
yeah, but it's not. Like there's a classiness with it in regard to when these series, when these icons were big. I mean, they had a certain, just a demeanor, a
Yeah.
style. That was one of those things like people admired and wanted to emulate. I mean, we saw it like in the, what do I want to call it, we'll call it the Friends era. How
Right.
many female friends did you know that had the Jennifer Aniston haircut? I mean, or
Totally.
walk around with with acting like Chandler or Ross. I mean, it's
Yeah.
that
It
type.
impacts on culture, on our society. Right. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
you guys founded the company and you focus on a couple of brands, and we're going to look at some of, well, basically
Oh
your
yeah. Here we go.
catalog
Look
of
at
things so
the crew
far.
here. Yeah.
And you actually started with The Prisoner.
Yeah.
So what was it, was it a certain draw or a conversation you and Doc had that said, all right, of anything else we want to do, it's this because.
Yeah, you know, well, we're both, I mean, Doc is a super fan, and I think I'm a super fan now. I think when we started, I was a fan. But, you know, I've rewatched the show multiple times in making these toys, and it just gets better and better with every viewing.
Mhm.
So we were fans. And a little history, a little tidbit here for you. We had decided, I had told Doc, let's make toys, you know, we collect them, we have opinions on how to do them. We're seeing all these guys like Fresh Monkey Fiction and Marauder Gunrunners prove you can do it independently. I was really inspired by those guys, like the Eagle Force line that built it.
Mhm.
Um, and we reached out to ITV Studios. Uh, we were reaching out about Space 1999. That was the motivation.
Okay.
And they actually wrote us back, which is kind of a big deal, because as guys who'd never made anything, you know, we didn't have any proof. We were nobodies. But they politely wrote us back and said, you know, someone has that license. It's not available. Um, and I was like, well, they're talking to us. That's a start. I was like, let's see what else they have. And I saw the Prisoner, and I was like, that's it. We want to make Prisoner toys. And that's when I called Doc, because I knew Doc would love them, and I knew he'd have opinions on how to make sure we did them right. And I said, Doc, what do you think about Prisoner figures? And he was like, I'm in. Let's do it. And so we reached out. We sent a proposal to ITV, and kind of, as I say, the rest is history. They've been great licensor for us, great partners on the projects. We went out the door with retro Kenner style figures because we felt like that was the toy we didn't get, right? Like the Prisoners from 1967. A lot of Americans found it in the early 80s because of, syndication and PBS. And that was aesthetically our motivation. But then also, I felt, and Doc agreed with me, they're simpler toys to make. 5 points of articulation. Let's start small because we've never done it. We've never gone through a production pipeline. We've never worked with 3D sculptors. And it was the right move because we've kind of learned and grown. We followed up with Nancy Drew. We were like, everyone was like, you're going to make the Avengers next, right? You're going to go through all the British, spy stuff, which we love. Right. But we were like, one thing we've learned from writing television is always make a left if everyone's expecting you to make a right. So we dug out Nancy Drew. Doc pitched it to me, and I was like, hell yeah, she's cool and has never had a really proper toy. So we went on. And I agree about Prisoner having levels of depth, unbelievable levels. Every time I watch it, I find new layers. Patrick McGoohan was a genius. But yeah, Prisoner did so well and the fandom was so strong. We felt confident doing a wave 2 and really getting more of the number 2s. For those of you who haven't seen the show, you get an awesome villain every week. And it's in a very Kafka-esque way. You don't really understand what's going on, but you do get a great villain every week. So it's like, make more of those guys. About the end of wave 1, when we were manufacturing, it was pretty clear we were eventually going to want to make a 1/12 scale Prisoner, because there was a lot of fans asking for it. There are a lot of people that are like, oh, I love retro, but are you going to do like a Black Series version, or people wanted more detail. Oh, I love this because of the 1/12. Yeah, I hope you like the show. One thing that's really cool about this scale is the little things we can put in. Patrick McGoohan, one of the things in the show with number 6 is be seeing you, and they do the little hand gesture. We couldn't really do that with the 4-inch figure, but with the 12-inch, you swap out his hands, and so now you can put him on your shelf doing the be seeing you symbol, or you can have him shaking his fist, or it's just the little details we can get in with the 1/12 scale are really fun for us as creators.
Yeah, and I think what also kind of, at least for me, was continuing to build on not only just the interest of the show itself, but also knowing that you are in the production of a 1/12 scale figure line right now in regards to the comedic duo of Laurel and Hardy, which is where we first got a chance to talk to one another.
Yeah.
And that seems to be progressing amazingly well. I mean,
I got to tell you, starting with 4-inch 5-point figures was the smartest thing we ever did, because we did need to kind of work our way up to 22 points plus of articulation and all these like different parts and stuff. We're really tight with Bill and Fresh Monkey Fiction, who are doing Operation Monster Force with Big Bad Toy Store now. Chris Garrich, who works with multiple companies, but namely Four Horsemen. These guys have really helped us zero in on how to make a great toy. We've had opinions. I hope some of our choices heighten it, but really, our peers are really good people and really open with information. Brian at Super 7 has been just amazingly supportive of our venture and giving us advice. So it's a cool little community of people who are just making independent toys. And I'm a lifelong Laurel and Hardy fan. Like Doc is a lifelong Prisoner fan. And on a whim, I looked up who owned Laurel and Hardy, and I reached out to them and I said, hey, could we make toys? And they've been amazing. It's Larry Harmon Pictures, who people may know. Larry Harmon is Bozo the Clown. That's who actually the rights for Laurel and Hardy ended up with. Yeah. Bozo's legacy is kind of wrapped up a little bit with Laurel and Hardy's legacy. I can't help it. I'm gonna hold these up to my camera. We got the last prototypes for Stan and Ollie.
Let me get you up here.
Yeah. So these guys came in, and the reason I like showing them off, I mean, because they're beautiful and I love them. But we're doing a Kickstarter right now, right, for prisoner figures of the same style. But there's a lot of shared pieces on the insides, of joints and stuff. If you think these look fantastic, and I will argue they do, our prisoner toys are going to come down the line the same quality and style. And I mean, and this is all, we've designed them as best we can. We've worked with great sculptors, but our factory is amazing. And, you always want to work with people who plus things. I'm going to hold up while we have the camera on too. Here's our painted prototypes of number 6 and number 2.
Now, who did the paint masters or the
yeah, I was just about to say, I'm so glad you asked. So I don't know if you've seen at Joe Fest and on Kickstarter right now, the Grindhouse Toys World War Hell figures.
I can't remember what backer number I am, but they are my very first foray back into 1/18 scale.
I love it.
I've been fighting it for the longest time, but between them and then talking to some of the guys behind Delta 17, so I have 2 Delta 17 guys coming tomorrow, and
cool.
Again, another successful Kickstarter there with the group.
Yeah.
So
it's World War Hell, right? My brain is foggy at the end of the day. So Chris, who's behind that project and behind Grindhouse Toys, he is our prototype painter and printer.
Okay.
And so these gorgeous figures are because of him. And, so clearly he can work in 1/18 and in 1/12.
They're fantastic looking.
Yeah, they are. And he's a super, I love all these good people we're meeting. He's a super good guy. I'm so glad they funded pretty quick, with their line. And I don't know what backer number I am on that, but I jumped into, I was like, I got to have a few of these guys. So, yeah. But yeah,
that's kind of where my interest is in now with collecting. There's always going to be that mainline love, whether it's G.I. Joe or Star Wars. But I've been really fortunate, doing YouTube and just going to like different conventions, but meeting a lot of these independent creatives. I mean, I can't tell you how long I sat down and just talked to Rob Post of Savage Crucible and Harbinger Studios, just talking about processes in life and the ups and downs of toy making. And they had a successful Kickstarter and also starting another line with their Collegiate Legends. I mentioned before, you're talking to Bobby Valla and how he kind of continued on after his time at Hasbro, and he again, it took a couple times to get the backing for the Kickstarter, but now he has a successful toy line as well. And it's just really cool seeing all this, it's resurging and reinvigorating lines, like you mentioned earlier with Skeletron and bringing back, everything that they put out between the Roboskull, their 4-inch line, which I saw a lot of that stuff at ZoloCon earlier this year, and I almost jumped earlier. But then I'm looking at their 6-inch figures, and I'm just like, tell me when you guys are going to have them out so we can just get them in hand.
Yeah,
it's amazing how people can create these new items without sounding a little cross with it, but without being shackled behind shareholders and company ways. You can kind of branch out and make your own footprint in the world. So
and I'll jump in and I'll say that's because of the community. That is because of the backers that surround your product, and because you reminded me of that when you mentioned Valaverse, like, he has a community, right? He has, with Wandering Planet and Prisoner, and then Nancy Drew and Laurel and Hardy. Yeah, we're making these toys. Yeah, we can't make them unless people say, you know what, I'm going to trust you enough. Here's my $20. Here's my $60. Here's my, in case of the Prisoner, people, are pledging all in and going, you know what, here's my $230. I've seen your vision. I've seen what you can do. I'm going to trust you guys. And, a year and a couple months, these will be, created. It's because of crowdfunding and because of the communities that come to back us up, we're able to do it. Full stop. You know what I mean? There's no, and that's why the community aspect to Doc and I is so important. And as you probably are aware, prisoner fans are smart people. They are very intellectual people and they're analytical. And, that's tough. That's a tough audience to have because it's an opinionated audience that, can smell bullshit and can, has very strong opinions on how things should or should not be. And they're very important to us. We love our audience. Nancy Drew is the same thing. We keep picking IPs that have really intelligent fan bases, and that means extra work for us. But we just appreciate the community. That I don't think when we launched Prisoner, I was like, I just wanted to make these cool toys. I didn't realize that a few years later, I would have friends in the UK and Ireland and Australia, and we talk about these things we love. It's a focal point for our fandom. And how cool is that? How many people like yourself have I met, right?
And that's the other thing too, where they're like with a lot of the main companies, whether it's Mattel, Hasbro, you're not going to get this level of kind of like behind the curtain discussions. And that's what I really I love this type of conversation where we're just talking about, what made you kind of create this line? How does this feel? How do you take the feedback and the criticality of these really passionate fans?
Oh, there's days where I want to stop. I tell you, there's been a few emails that have made me want to quit, but passion's passion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that's where we're going to kind of head into right now with your latest one, which is,
of course, there we are,
Ultimate Edition. And I did want to highlight, you guys launched on the 9th and you were funded on the 10th. I don't know if that is one of the fastest toy line Kickstarter goals reached. We're
lucky. Thank you. I think we've been developing this line for 2+ years. We've known we wanted to do it. We were working on the details. Laurel and Hardy landed first, and we knew they would kind of trailblaze for us and teach us some of the things we needed to know about 1/12. So we were cruising towards launch of this being like, we've successfully backed 2 Prisoner Kickstarters. We have a cool audience. We have a great mailing list of all these people who love the Prisoner. Laurel and Hardy are just kicking ass. They're beautiful toys. Prisoner 1/12 scale is this is gonna be amazing. And then we got hit with this tariff nonsense and the economy and the uncertainty, the just obliteration and attack on the toy industry that our government has done. And we were like, God, I hope we fund, because consumer confidence is down,
Exactly.
And so we were leading into this campaign being like, well, we've done all the work. We believe in the toys and we want to make them and we want to own them. I hope that, there are enough Prisoner fans who want this scale. And we hope that there's enough 1/12 fans who have been wanting Prisoner, right? And luckily funding in almost 24 hours. It was about 29 hours. We're thankful. I mean, we're just thankful for it. We were really uncertain we're always honest about stuff because why the hell not, right? That's why we're so transparent about the behind the scenes. We were confident in the product, but wow, this 2025 has been so uncertain and so unsettling for the toy industry. We didn't know. But luckily, the little indie guys are bobbing and weaving and dodging punches, and we're getting these toys out.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, what I have here is like a little bit of a background of what you were talking about, and this is coming from the Kickstarter, talking about the Prisoner of itself and giving like a brief synopsis of number 6 and how he got into the village. But yeah, I mean, we talked about the retro way or the retro figures and just the passion that, the community, as you were mentioning, has. So I'm happy you guys took the leap, but also the evolution of the company in of itself to kind of give us the 6-inch version of the figures. So
Yeah, thank
let's
you. I
talk
mean,
about them so far.
yeah, and at the end of the day, we're trying to make stuff that we want, right? And we know other prisoner fans will want, and um, you know, follow your heart, right? And we were like, okay, we want to see figures in this scale, and in this TV accurate kind of sculpting. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
number 6, our hero.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like I said earlier, some of the nice details that we couldn't necessarily do with a small figure. He actually is going to come with his badge.
Oh, I
Uh,
can see the packaging up there.
yeah, in the packaging render, we have it. I'm a big fan of Chicken Fried Toys, the guys that do the dime novel
The Wild
Legends,
West.
the Wild West figures. I love those toys. And being inspired by those guys, they all their like sheriffs would come with a badge, right? It wasn't just molded onto the collar. So that's, prisoner fans are very opinionated on whether or not he should wear the badge. He doesn't really wear it in the show. They give it to him and he's like, to hell with this. But
Mhm.
it felt like the toy should have it. So, it has it. We're working right now. It's not in the picture. We're trying to actually, we didn't do stretch goals on this campaign because
Mhm.
of just how challenging toys are right now. We were like, let's just give everybody, you're going to know all the good stuff you're getting. We're not going to make that extra portrait, that extra head and unlock. You're just going to get it. But we want to like keep it fun. So we keep coming up with new accessories. And, we announced a new accessory for the number 2 about a week and a half ago. We're working on still more accessories for number 6. And like, we're just finishing. No one's seen this, but I will tell all y'all. If you look in his cupboard, there's all this great village food stuff. Everything in the thing is like, and so he's going to come with a can, one of the village foods cans of soup.
Oh, okay.
That's something we're just finishing now. That'll be a fun add-on. He's got to have one of those iconic phones from the show, the different hands, the badge. The figure stand that is included is his badge from the show. And then, I guess number 2 would be the next one to jump towards.
Great. But
Thank you,
I
Carrie.
guess, yeah, Carrie, thank you. But with the whole idea and just like watching documentaries or people's opinions of the show, and like Patrick McGoohan was just such a passion and an enigma on that
Yeah,
show. I mean, there were watching some of the, like I said, some of these said documentaries about each episode and kind of behind the scenes. He was uh, kind of at times a maniac in regards to like
oh, totally.
changing the script, working through
Yeah.
hours. I mean, I know in the episodes are going to escape me, but I know we're going to talk about it with number 2. But the episode where they were in the bunker for a week.
Oh, yeah. Is this Chimes of Big Ben where they're in the crate getting
No,
transported?
no,
Oh,
when it was number 2 and number 6
oh,
in
yes.
the
That's the
bunker.
second. Yeah. Once Upon a Time.
Yes,
Yeah. Twice Upon a Time. Yeah.
yes, and just watching and talk, some of the discussions that were talked about, like the long hours and the tension that was actually built up between Patrick and Leo throughout the filming of that episode. It's kind of fascinating, and like you said, this is a series where you have to sit there and you have to watch,
Yeah.
because if you're not, you will very easily get lost in the episode and not know what's going on and get
Totally.
discouraged and whatnot. But
That
um,
episode is so intense. Yeah.
yes,
If I remember right, and I wish Doc was here because he's like an encyclopedia. If you ever need Doctor Who or prisoner facts, you just talk to Doc because they're all in his head. If I remember right, Leo McKern had health issues. I don't know if it was a heart attack, but there was some kind of health scare for him filming that episode because it was so intense.
Yeah, from what I remember watching is, there was a time like after he was done, there was a period where he just stayed in his, I guess his suite or his room, and like they found
Yeah.
him kind of hunched over and just really, I don't want to say he was having a mental break, but
Yeah.
like you said, it's a lot of tension and a lot of energy because if you watch that episode and just how they go back and forth, I mean, they're inches away from each other, screaming at the top of
So
their,
intense.
lungs.
Yeah.
It's so
And both
cool, and then
methody kind of acting and like fully in it.
yes,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
that
Patrick
episode,
McGoohan's a genius.
and
Yeah.
how that episode ended. I
Yeah.
mean, it was one of those where it actually, the following episode was one of those moments where you realize right along towards that end because that was a tough part. Is like trying, like from what I read and such, of where Patrick was trying to find a way to close out the series,
Yeah.
and that was where it kind of went through. But one fun fact I didn't realize until I was looking through things here is Patrick McGoohan was Longshanks in Braveheart. I never
Yeah.
knew it. I could not
Isn't that
picture
cool?
it. But then
Yeah.
as soon as I read it and I went back and I watched Braveheart, I'm like, holy shit, that is him. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
I did the same thing with Scanners because I'm a huge David Cronenberg fan, and I've seen Scanners a bunch. And I don't know how it escaped me. Let's just say it's because he's such a brilliant actor. I did not realize that Patrick McGoohan is in like 2/3 of that movie
I didn't,
until I
that
became like an Uber prisoner dude. Yeah.
and now I want to go back and look at the episodes where he was in Columbo. I was just
Oh
little
yes.
things like this. I'm like,
Yeah, his Columbo episodes are fantastic,
yeah.
especially the one at the military academy because it's so different of a performance from number 6.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love the
Mm.
Patrick McEwen Columbo relationship.
Now, do you feel that this was a successor to Danger Man, or
You
do you have a
know,
different opinion on it?
I kind of stay away from that debate
Okay.
because I don't know Danger Man very well. I love my classic TV, but that's one I just never saw. So, and I know people are very opinionated. I do know that this show would never have existed without Danger Man or Secret
Yeah.
Agent Man because he had so much clout, right? He had so much power at the end. He was so popular, and that show did so well. He could have done all these different things. He wanted to make The Prisoner, right? Like
Yeah.
he cashed in to make this intellectual, brilliant series that we're still talking about. 60 years, 55 years later, or whatever.
And I want to say another aspect of the show, which was so different from like looking at other British TV series at the time, was how he framed and the cinematography behind the series. It was very open and very
Yeah,
broad versus, say, I'm going comedy now, but like Death Adder, where like everything was very close up, and
yeah,
you felt sometimes you felt a little claustrophobic, whereas he did such a wide, these wide angle shots of him running on the beach or, in the motorboat, trying to escape. And it really kind of encompassed and made the village its own, oh, zoom in there, its own, its own character in the series. So
hundred
that was,
percent.
again,
Yeah,
it's like these little nuances that you keep finding each time.
yeah, 100%. And it's also because television is so like you have your executives and everything's so formal, and it's like it for some reason has almost like an independent film type vibe to it because of
Mhm.
that. One of my other favorite classic TV series is Hawaii Five O. The Jack Lord series, and
Mhm.
I like both of them have this in common that they somehow made their show away from interference. So they, being in Hawaii, they were just shooting from the hip on Hawaii Five O, and it was really like independent filmmaking that ended up on TV every week. And I think Prisoner has some of that as well. Some of the psychedelic stuff they do and the camera tricks, budget friendly, but also there were probably executives that were very uncomfortable with it at the time, but he got it through.
Absolutely. I just want to shout out another friend of mine here, Joe A. Collects. Didn't hear about the show, but the figures are all right. And Joe, I talked to you about this guy, the series before. And I think when the Kickstarter came out, I don't know if it was on if we talked on the last stream with unboxing on or not, but I'm glad you're in here tonight and getting some information about the Kickstarter. So I know
Yeah.
he's always looking for new toys to add to
And
his collection.
and I'll tell him I think that it's on Amazon Prime. It's usually on Amazon Prime.
It is.
It's also on Tubi, which is great because Tubi's free. And then you can go watch RoboForce right afterwards. See what I did there.
Nice.
But yeah, I've really dug back and okay. So spoiler alert: Doc and I are plotting out the retro wave 3. We're gonna do these 1/12 figures, and then we're coming back for I think what I hate to say final, but we're gonna wave 3 is gonna, if it's the last wave we do, it will be very satisfying. And in doing that, we've really been mining Fallout, the final episode, the characters, the sets. We're really looking at, we have a satisfying wave 1 and 2, but they're characters and things we want, and we know everybody wants them. We're digging in deep on that right now and determining that.
Now, for those that weren't able to, like me, get into the retro first and second wave, are they still available, or how can we possibly build on
there will be some that are not. That's just the nature of collectible toys. But either through our Kickstarter, through our online store, which we're soon going to be launching, or through Big Bad Toy Store, who've been great retail partners for us. Pretty much, if you missed out on stuff, you'll be able to get it. There's one I could probably talk about because we just got licensor approval. We had made the carded checkmate figure. He was on a blister card. I'm going to hold him up here. This is the cool cape, and so the checkmate figure is completely gone after our Wave 2 Kickstarter. There's no back stock. We don't even have them. Like the ones I had in my personal collection, we actually shipped out because we ran up short.
Wow.
But we had not made an episode specific 2-pack for Checkmate. And now that we have our Peter Wingard #2, we're going to make a Checkmate box set that has this #6 that some people may have missed, and the Peter Wingard #2 together in our episode specific format, like we've done for Chimes of Big Ben or Schizoid Man. So, because we're collectors, we get it. We want to make stuff accessible to people who missed it, but retain some of what's special about, okay, well, I was there when Wave 1 launched and I got that Checkmate figure and I still have it. I don't want to take away from that for that person, but I also don't want someone new to not be able to get that 6. So how do we repackage it? How do we, make it in a way that it's cool, or if you're like a diehard like me, you're like, well, I have the carded one. I kind of want the 2-pack too, because that's so. We will continue to work on ways to make sure that if you missed out on waves 1 and 2, crucial characters or versions of #6, you'll still be able to get. Packaging might be different, etc. But
excellent. Well, as we have our protagonist, we always have to have an engaging antagonist.
Yes.
And like you said, with every I'm sorry. Well, we're going to go through this real quick though.
Oh, that's package design, and the price.
The layout here.
Yeah.
What we've talked about. And this is the Kickstarter price here of $62. And like you said, there's additional things that could be changing from the render that you have on the Kickstarter. But this is really cool. I mean, like you said, the phone, the additional hands is what's really
Love
cool.
The hands. Yeah.
That's something that friends of mine in the community have always talked about with other figures is, having trigger hands or C cup hands are great, but if a character is known for, we'll say Sergeant Slaughter, who's
right,
he has a pointed finger, but you don't have that, you're not missing it out.
Totally.
So this is cool that have that very iconic gesture for him to kind of help flesh out the character
totally
for a collection and display.
You just reminded me. I was going to show you. So Laurel and Hardy. There's a great gag where Stan brings Ollie a bag of hard-boiled eggs and nuts in one
Mhm.
of the shorts. It's a really silly gag, and we made the bag, and we ended up having to make a special hand that can hold it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so Stan is now going to come with this hand that's a little bit wider, so it can hold the accessory. I totally agree with you. These are the little details that make a toy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And again, as you're saying, with a line that references back to such a beloved show or character overall, there are things that collectors are going to ask for and look for. And I
totally.
did forget to mention when you were first showing the prototypes, is that you actually have a YouTube video out there showing you going through the articulation uh, of of these prototypes that you just showed earlier. So it's really
Yeah,
cool, and I hope everyone gets a chance to look at it. And it's also actually on the update for the Kickstarter.
it
You
is.
posted
Yeah.
it on both, so that's great.
Yeah, I was excited. It's on our Instagram too, if that's easier. It's just one of our reels.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to show off because um, these are very dynamic figures. The way they're constructed and the joints and the shoulders and on the arms and um, the Laurel and Hardy and the Prisoner are built. We've designed them the same way, so
Okay.
that range of motion, carries over to both. I'm just uh, looking at like the things you can do in 1/12 that you couldn't do in 1/18. How amazing is it that we get the number 2 that we know from Chimes of Big Ben, and then I won't say what happens, but he comes back with this different look in the final episode. So we got to
Mhm.
do that head as well, and so you could do Chimes of Big Ben number 2, or you could do Fallout number 2, or the professor hat with the glasses from uh, Once Upon a Time,
On the
Twice
time.
Upon a Time. I always forget it, but
Yeah, once upon a time.
yeah.
So,
How cool is it? We can basically represent 3 episodes in one box
and
with one
bucks.
figure. Yeah.
And again, of all the number twos we had through the 17 episodes, Leo was the most not flamboyant in regards to personality of all the number twos that we had. I mean, you had I'm gonna I'm not gonna remember the actress's name, but the female
Oh,
number
Mary
two
Morris is
was
amazing. Yeah.
she was just so
So good.
menacing and just like one of those like
Delightful, right?
you don't want to
Yeah.
cross her at all.
Yeah.
But Leo just had that personality that you wanted to keep watching. You wanted to,
Yeah.
in a way, especially with like, when we first are introduced to him at the art show, you're like, all right, I want him to, I'm happy he's seeing all this, you know, creativity embellishing him,
Yeah, I know. It's
whatever,
brilliant.
behind the line of it all. But again,
That
Leo McKern was just a fantastic actor.
Oh, he's just
Um,
amazing. You spoke of the art show, which is a good time for me to jump in and say one of the additional accessories we created for number 2 is the little wooden chess piece that's basically of him that was submitted in the craft show in that episode. This toy is going to come with that now. It's one of the accessories, and that we put on our updates and we put it on our story page of the Kickstarter.
and
Um,
I'll have that shown here next on the
yeah,
next slide.
it's so
But
fun. But yeah, everyone has a favorite. I love Peter Wimgard. He's one of my favorites. I love Mary Morris. I love from God with number 100, Darren Nesbitt in Watch Me with the God. I'm blanking on my episodes. Prisoner fans don't hate me, but Darren Nesbitt's another one of my favorite number 2s. But man, people love Leo. He is
yes,
maybe definitive. Yeah.
yes, and Carrie, I'm with you. We'll see wave two, hopefully, of the 112 scale figures, and I'm sure fans were going to give you tons of feedback and
Oh yeah.
recommendations and how you should do it and all the other fun things that creators get to
Oh,
hear
we
from.
we love it. We one of the things that's going to come with number 6 is because the fan suggested it on our Kickstarter. Yeah.
Now, as I said with Patrick, I had that little aha moment when I was researching about Leo, and I never realized he had a glass eye.
I didn't either. I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, he actually had an accident at the age of 15 where he had a piece of steel
Oh,
damage his eye, so it was removed. And after I just read that, going back through the episodes, and especially again, we'll talk about Once Upon a Time, but when they start zooming in on his face, um, toward the end of the episode, not spoiling it for those that haven't watched it, but what happens right before that with him, you can definitely start seeing when he's a little more manic and stuff. You can
right.
definitely tell. You can tell the glass eye because he's shifting around, and it's another. I'll say it's a credit to the cinematography where they zoomed in and they were focusing on the side where his natural eye was at because that's the one that was moving. But if you look again now, you'll see the other eye doesn't move at all, and you
Yeah.
can where you can see like the iris inflections and movement around as he was going through the situation.
I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just stuff
I've
like
seen
that
it,
is.
with some of the Peter Falk stuff, right? With Columbo, there's a few times when he'll give an
Mhm.
expression or something, and you can kind of tell. But it's fascinating to me that these performers, I mean, uh, just at the level of, I mean, Peter Falk is one of the best actors in television, like hands down.
Mhm.
Leo McKern, same, and they're so good we don't even know maybe some of the things they're struggling
Absolutely.
against to give us that performance. Yeah.
Well, as you mentioned, we
Oh, there
have
it is. Yeah.
number two, and we have a bunch of items that we can obviously see in here. The very iconic scarf from that introduction, as well as the umbrella, which I don't remember. Did he have
I
that in the beginning, or what episode was the umbrella in?
That was in Chimes of Big Ben,
Okay.
and I didn't know what these were. A lot of people in the UK know exactly what they are. It's called a shooting stick. I had never understood that, a shooting stick umbrella, and that weird handle folds down into basically like a little stool. So you plant the umbrella and you can kind of sit on it like a little
No
stool.
way.
Yeah, I never understood that.
Okay.
We can't get that level of detail into the toy of the unfolding, but yeah, I had to
Mhm.
deep dive and really learn what kind of unusual umbrellas they were, and that yeah, they're referred to as shooting sticks. Yeah.
Very cool. And like you said before, we have the chess piece that you were talking about here, and that's
Yeah,
just
how fun
another
is
item that's
that?
unlocked.
Yeah,
Very cool. And the fact that we have the alternate hands where he could actually, hold it in that open palm and, kind of have it where he's holding it and admiring it and such.
totally.
And like you said, with the alternate heads or portraits as you have it on the Kickstarter, we see an evolution of different episodes.
Yeah,
I'm not going to point out which one you're talking about for like towards Fallout, but fans will know, and I'm sure that they're definitely going to appreciate this variety they can put on their display.
totally. Well, I'm like that now with I'm a big, as you can tell, from my office, big collector, and I think with like SH Figure Arts and some of the Japanese figures, like I have an Indiana Jones. I love this figure, and every few months I'll swap out his facial expression and switch out his hands and put him in a new pose, and it's a really good way to keep enjoying stuff and freshen it up. And we're
Mhm.
hoping Prisoner fans can now do that.
And that's kind of how I try to keep things my interests and such in regards to my collection is I like to try to. I'm not saying very good at it, but I'm a novice with with toy photography and
Mhm.
trying to set things up, and then getting back in collecting. I was right during COVID, so I'm sitting there just watching video after video and seeing these guys create these amazing dioramas. So
It's
of course,
intimidating. Oh,
it is, but then of course for me, I kind of jump in both feet, so I automatically start getting, oh, I need this hot wire cutter. Oh, I need to buy
I
all this
love it.
XPF. Now I got to get these paints and blah 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 blah. And then it's trying to find time for everything because
Yeah, I know.
everything ended. Life came back to quote unquote normal, and everyone's working, you
Yep,
know,
we're
as it
back to
would.
it. Yeah. No, I love
So
taking toy photos too. It's a really awesome way to enjoy. And I feel the same way. I'm no expert at it, but I just enjoy it. And
A-
I'm blown away by some of the people on Instagram and their toy photography.
Absolutely. And I think it's another way that, that we can kind of say thank you to you as a creator to provide us with, these toys that allow us to relive, things we love about it, whether it's,
Totally.
like I said, with G.I. Joe setting up a scene or
Yeah.
having these two dynamic personalities from a TV show just sitting there staring at each other, or
Yeah.
having them sit down in front of like at a small table and two chairs, just having them sitting down. They don't have to be doing anything but just be there.
Yeah,
It's very
totally.
cool.
And like it's a cycle, right? Like we're happy to be part of the cycle of celebrating these shows and characters. Yeah,
Yeah.
we do it because we love it. We love these guys, you know.
And we love the option of buying things
Yeah.
in one, which kind of leads into this. We
Yeah.
have a bundle set, and again, like what you had with Laurel and Hardy, you kind of bring back another little tidbit of our youth in regards to like a very unique way to hold the accessories or hold the figures in regards to a lunchbox.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
really like it.
like there was somewhere in the 60s or 70s was a kid that wanted a prisoner lunchbox and never got one. And so we finally made it for that kid. The art, Richard, who made that, was one of our backers of Wave 1. And he, just a fan like us, and he reached out and he goes, oh yeah, I'm a painter. I painted some, if you want to see my stuff. And we saw this art, and for some time we're like, God, it'd be really cool I really want to, use Richard's art on something. And when we got the idea of doing the retro style lunchbox, we were like, well, his art feels like, if you got an A-Team lunchbox or if you got a Star Wars lunchbox, it feels like that kind of painting.
Mm-hmm.
So how cool is it? We got to work with one of our backers to create that.
I love it. And I'm assuming that this is, as we're saying, we're going full retro. This is going to be like a metal tin
It's 10,
frame,
yeah.
lunchbox, and it's going to
Yeah.
have nice storage padding to protect the figures and all the accessories in place. And I do have to ask, with the art that's there, is that a hint of something in a future, possibly wave 2? Are these interesting?
Oh, those characters,
Yes.
yeah, we picked out the Leo was already part of the art, and when we made it for the lunchbox, we went back and we said, let's put a couple other number 2s that we love on it. So I think it was just more us just celebrating number 2s that we really like.
Okay.
It is 10. We were not able to pull off a thermos. I know a lot of us have memories of that thermos in there. But I will say that in the retro line, we've been working on let's just say something with 4 wheels. We've been working on a license for about 4 years or 2 years trying to work this out. So we're close. There's a good chance.
Is this a yes or no? for
a
you say
Dukes of
licenses?
Hazzard to get a lunchbox. Yeah, did Dukes of Hazzard have a lunchbox?
They did have a lunchbox.
They did have one back in the day. Mm-hmm. I had that Mego Dukes of Hazzard car, the General Lee with the 2 O-ring figures.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I loved that toy. I played that toy into the ground. It was always G.I. Joes were always driving around in my world, but what a great toy that was.
It was one of those things where I would go over to a friend's house because he had the Knight 2000 back in the 80s, with that big Michael Knight, and we would always go against his sister who had the Barbie car, and then Knight Rider jumping all over him, and again, it's one of those. It's an 80s thing.
Yeah.
Not only do you have a set of actors and actresses that you love, but they had the uncanny ability to create an inanimate object and make it a character for you to love. And I just got so excited that I just zoomed in on myself again.
I saw that. But yeah, like Knight Rider, Airwolf, arguably the A-Team van as a character.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna grab something, speaking of that you'll get a kick out of.
No problem. So again, while we're waiting for Gavin, I just want to thank everyone who's watching right
This is a
now.
vintage toy that I really had to hunt for.
Let me get
Speaking
you.
of iconic, the Riptide Screaming Mimi diecast from Ertl. Like, talk about, that's about
Oh,
as ridiculous 80s as you can get, right?
yes, but that is gorgeous.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Man.
Same Ertl had made an Airwolf, and I had that when I was a kid. And Riptide was not a great show. It was just fun.
Anyway, yes.
It was just fun, and they had this big crazy helicopter on it, and I had to have that toy. But yeah, back to Prisoner.
Yep.
One of the things that's so iconic about the show are the sayings and
Mm-hmm.
the type, the font, the aesthetic of the village. And there's these great iconic signs that are in different episodes. And we reached out to ITV and we said, hey, could we, as a add-on to the campaign, could we make a enamel pin set of the signage? And we picked out 3 of our favorites. And yeah, how cool is that? I mean, we've had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I don't want the toys, but can I buy the pins? And I'm like, well, we appreciate that, but we got to sell toys. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's an add-on.
But again, having those phrases and knowing where they came in on various episodes and like the kind of the meaning behind each of those phrases encompassing with the show, it's
Yeah.
very cool. I like it. It brings that, again, it's another element of like the whole premise of number 6 is that he is somewhere and there is an overarching push to get something out of him, and
Yeah.
they will do everything they can to manipulate the situation to try their best to get him to answer the question for information.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of weird, or not weird, but like surreal. And
Yeah.
my eyes keep going back to the middle of hell, and that statement of questions are a burden to others and answers a person of oneself.
Yeah.
That just kind of really solidifies the entire premise of that show.
Totally.
You know,
There's
and it's
I was gonna say there's an episode called I think Hammer Meets Anvil, which is one of the most brilliant episodes of the show, where it's just cat and mouse between him and the powers that are trying to control him. Because a lot, it could easily be, how's he going to try to escape this week, right? Like,
right.
He's a prisoner. The show could have just evolved into, well, how are they going to get off Gilligan's Island this week, right? Yep. But then you get episodes like Hammer Meets Anvil, where he's pissed and he's like, I'm gonna play them by their own rules and take them down, and it's so satisfying to watch. Given everything going on in the world right now, with just we're really in trouble with information. Like our country's, there's 2 different narratives, and depending on what side of it you land, you believe a different truth. The Prisoner goes into that. It examines all that, and it questions it, and it critiques it. And I think that's why it's timeless, right? It's always going to be, there's always going to be authoritarianism. There's always going to be someone trying to control you, whether it be through science, technology, or power. And this show is awesome because somehow Patrick McGoohan was smart enough to step outside of it and analyze it and say, here's a character who's going to challenge it.
Read. And it just, you're talking about that harkens back to the episode where the election for the new number 2, and just how his answer to the reporters is no comment, and they're just creating an entire narrative on what they want the world or the village to see of number 6.
Totally.
And it's weird, he starts getting involved with it, and he starts, basically
he starts to believe it, right? I think he might be able to work it. Yeah.
And it's ironic that, like you said, it's art mimics life, and life mimics art, and that's basically kind of what we're seeing now with a whole bunch of stuff. And it actually bleeds over into basic things in life, whether you're, again, for a soda fan, you got Coke or Pepsi, or even within the toy community. It's like, do you stick with Hasbro? Do you again, going back to Valaverse, they're like one of my favorite lines, but it's very much in the community. It's like you either love one and hate the other. And if you try to cross the streams,
Right.
you don't go too far, because if
Right.
not, it's everyone is for themselves and they're gonna come after you. And it's kind of, again, it's one of the unfortunate sides, but it's also human nature where,
Yeah.
people
That's the
have
thing.
people
Yeah.
people make, choices every day on what they agree and what they disagree with. And sometimes it's harder and harder to break that perception. And Titan says it very distinctly here. Understanding is a three-edged sword, your side, my side, and the truth,
Yeah. That's a great way to
it's
put
a
it.
great statement.
That could be one
Well,
of our next prisoner pins, if they had, right. It fits right in. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we have to look at right now. That's what's going to be
Yeah.
available in the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But I do have a couple of questions, and I
Yeah.
think we've kind of hinted on them initially here. But $62 for the figure, 130 for the pair. We're looking back at the previous Kickstarter again with Laurel and Hardy. They were 37, 38 individually, and 78 for the pair.
Yeah.
Is the cost difference this time, basically kind of what you were saying before, is kind of helping supplement the uncertainty behind the world today,
Well,
or
yeah, there's two things is, it's a more expensive license for us,
okay.
so that affects cost a little bit. It's also, yeah, just the chaos of tariffs. There's no way we're getting out of making these without paying tariffs.
Mhm.
It's fluctuated in crazy ways. I can
Mhm.
tell you that we changed the price point on these. We were supposed to launch these toys. We were all poised to go. We were ready to go 2 days after this 145% tariff on China was announced.
Right.
We had to pause our campaign. We actually spent 3 weeks to a month and a half determining if we were ever going to be in business again. Because 145% tariff is, there's no way you can.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you're out of
Yeah.
business. Yeah. So you know the tariff thing is tricky and it's ever moving.
Mhm.
Um, if we get to a future where it's zero, then we'll figure out ways to make things less. But
Mhm.
right now, unfortunately, our price did go up. Yeah,
And,
and
and
it's not in our pocket. I'll tell you. Like I said, we're very honest about stuff. Wandering Planet's amazing in that we've it's made money, but it's money that's all gone back into the company. Doc and we're not profiting off of all this work.
Mhm.
We're building an entity that hopefully has value. But yeah, we're doing this because we love it. We're not making, I see a lot of toy collectors get really mad about prices and greed and stuff. And I can tell you, all the little guys at our level,
Mhm.
it's a success because we're not losing money. And then you have like a government slap on a ridiculous tax that puts a lot of people out of business. It makes a lot of Kickstarters go away.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a an individual that you mentioned earlier in the show, Chris Gowridge. I mean,
Yeah.
he had a successful Kickstarter, Biblical Ventures, that I have almost all of them.
Love that.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to say, but I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's no shock that one of the updates he had was they arrived right at the highest point, and he got hit with $25,000. I mean, that's out
Yeah.
of his pocket.
Out
That's
of
out
his
of
pocket.
everything. And what you're saying about collectors being upset about prices and prices constantly going up and such, and it's hard to get the messages you just had stated here across, because there's so many. They're just looking at Hasbro, Mattel, and all these big
Right.
corporations, and they're saying, oh well, the CEO just got
Yeah.
another multi-million dollar bonus, but they just slash their workforce by 11%.
Yeah.
It's a tough pill to
It's
swallow.
gross.
And
Yeah, it's gross.
it's understanding that smaller companies, independent groups that are passionate about this, again, it's not going in there looking for immediate profit. It's
Yeah.
like you said, it's the love of the line. It's wanting to see a vision come to fruition. You get it from the initial asking for the license, to seeing, like you said, amazing photography of your toys
Yeah.
in people's hands.
Yeah. And
um
just the joy,
yeah.
and I don't, I agree with frustrations, and I don't mean to belittle it by any means. But yeah, it's more expensive than I think sometimes people realize. I can tell you the 4-inch figure tooling on that alone is like $19,000 just to make the molds that the plastic pours into. That's not accounting for 3D design, for acquiring the license, for pouring the plastic and painting the plastic and shipping them. It is not a venture, to take lightly. But there are all these great things happening, right? Crowdfunding helps us. Uh, the little guys are getting to make some really cool stuff, and I think I'm really focused on that. Of course, I want Hasbro to be successful. I love my GI Joe stuff. I love my Transformers. I love He-Man stuff. I want those guys to be successful too. But I do think technology is allowing littler folks like ourselves to at least get in there, and a successful run for us is like 5,000 units.
Yeah.
That's not a lot. Like Laurel and Hardy, I think was 5,000. Was not. It's not what people think it is, and we're not like counting our money like Daddy Warbucks. I guess what I'm saying is not unlike the us and Jeff Bezos, there's a huge gap between, say, what Wandering Planet is producing and what, like, a giant toy company that's a legacy toy company is producing.
Right.
We're never going to be in Target. That's fine. We don't want that. I don't care about that. I'm happier making less units that are higher quality for people who love it.
Absolutely,
I
because
have another job. That's how I pay my mortgage. So
yeah, and as we've seen, these large numbers, especially from these bigger companies, you just see people all the time. Well, this new wave of Joes. Well, I'm just going to wait because it's going to hit
right,
Ross, or it's
Ross.
going to
Yeah,
hit this other discount store, and it's unfortunate, because
yeah.
again, not only it's the viewpoint, kind of like what you're saying before. It's not just looking at it as the corporation. There are people behind the scenes that are working their butts off to
Oh yeah,
create a lot of this stuff.
yeah.
Um, and
100%. Well, we know Super Seven just got dinged and had to do a layoff, and people were cruel online about it. And I'm like, these are people who are just like, the people who got laid off are people who are just working for a living and are
yeah,
talented and artistic, and they're just, often they're also fans, and that's how they ended up in that kind of career.
mhm.
So I think with the internet, and this, you do a podcast, we have to remind people on the other end of that screen is a human being who's just trying to do their best and enjoy
Yep.
stuff and pay the rent.
And I think it's hard, seeing it like that, and especially in the community where, like you said, Super Seven, um, a lot of those that don't look at Super Seven in the most positive light. It's not because of the company. It's not because of the workers. It's because of the one person. And it's something similar we see, Hasbro. Looking at CEO, is Chris Cox, that people would go after that, or um, again, we'll be very transparent about it. People look at each of the teams from Hasbro, and I mean, Emily from the Hasbro team, or the Joe team. There were times where people just were obsessively rule online
Yeah.
about her, and some people fail to see, like, you have to earn that position. So she probably has worked her ass off to get to that point.
Yeah.
And people will go and say, again, with the metaphor of like Coke or Pepsi in regards to like it's G.I. Joe or Valaverse, there's a lot of angst with how Bobby Vala portrays himself. But also he has gone through I'm going to say over a decade plus of learning how to develop toys. There is a knowledge behind that, but that passion sometimes is seen as more. Well, I mean, it basically comes down like what we were saying is how you portray yourself. Sometimes that one first impression sours the entire bushel from then on. So
Right.
again, there's a lot of outreach for those that lost their jobs from Super 7, and I've seen some people are like, hey, we just got back, I'm now working for this company and such. And we saw the same thing with Corey Catalupe whenever he was, when he departed Hasbro and he went to Skeletron as a
Right.
consultant designer, and look
Right.
at
Yeah.
all the amazing stuff they're doing now.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. We just benefited from, and I can't say anything, spoilers, but we just got an incredible new head sculpt for an upcoming 1/12 scale figure from a gentleman who had been working with Super 7. And, we're happy we got to use him. We got to work with him because otherwise he would have been, too busy.
Yeah.
We're excited. It is a community and also it's a hobby. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world that we could be upset about.
Mm-hmm.
As long as people are honest and trying to give you a good toy and good quality and the best price point they can, that's it. It's a hobby. It's a hobby. There's way other big, if the minute you're not enjoying this stuff, then get out. If you're not enjoying buying it, don't buy it. If you're not enjoying making it, don't make it. Like this is supposed to be here to take away, to help us from all the garbage going on in the world. And we don't, it's just, sometimes I think people online need to remember, it's just, we're doing this because it's fun. This is supposed to be fun. Yeah.
It's like you said, it's an outlet to kind of go back in time for a little bit and remember when things were simpler.
Yeah, totally.
So my other
we're on our soapbox, aren't we? Anyway, yeah.
It's not bad. It's not bad. That's why these conversations happen amongst fans, and it's I think a way to help bridge that synergetic look, saying like, look, the people that are making the toys are talking about the same thing that you guys are arguing about in some sort of Facebook
and worried about the same things. Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
So looking at the Kickstarter, you have a release. You have kind of a very staggered release, and I was wondering if that's
that might just be a mistake on my part. Let me see.
We have number 6 coming out in May, and then number 2 and the 2-pack were in June. So are we looking basically?
It's just me not hitting the right dials on Kickstarter. I apologize. Yeah, sorry everybody. They should all arrive at the same time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, this is all.
Yeah, Kickstarter is hard, man, setting up all that stuff. And it's like you have to set up your item, and then you have to set up your pledge tier, and then you have to connect your item to the pledge tier, and there's all these drop downs. So we just try to ballpark say, and this is going to crack you up. What's the later date? Then that's the one I'm saying. So May, June it is. Don't get mad at me if May we don't have them.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, probably come January, of 26, you guys are still going to get questions like, when is this going to be released? When's my tracking number? All this. I mean, I've seen it through other Kickstarters and looking in the comments and just like, or people just start getting, again, going back to Chris, his Kickstarter took 2 years for it to get released, and that's just, there's development time, there's going back. You mentioned the retro tooling for one figure is 19,000. I don't know if that changes if you had to make changes to the tooling. Does that number go up?
I mean, we've been really strategic, so we haven't had to change any tooling mid-run, thank God. I can't even imagine the additional cost it would incur. And that's just a ballpark, but it is yeah, it's a very expensive manufacturing process for sure. I found that Safubi style toys are a little less. Like when we made the headless ones,
Mhm.
the tooling expense was much more forgiving. But you're producing fewer toys and charging more versus producing. Those tools don't hold out like these steel ones for
Oh,
yeah, it's so many
for the vinyl.
variables, man. Yeah.
Is this that's just because the material in regards like were the headless ones, were they more like a vinyl
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're
rubber
vinyl
cast
toys.
type of? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, at this point, I really just want to kind of well, we're done with killing everyone by PowerPoint, and I just want to bring up the
Oh, let's do
Kickstarter
it.
real
Yeah,
quick.
I appreciate
Um,
it. Thank you, everybody, for checking all this out.
so
We're excited to
here
make
we
these
are.
things. Yeah. Is this
And
live? Is
again,
this what we're at?
this is it right now. We
Wow.
are sitting
Okay.
at $61,000 and
Awesome.
464 backers, man.
Awesome. Thank
That
you,
is
everybody.
fantastic to say the least. I think that's like 160. Don't quote my math right now. I'm old, but it's 162% of your funding goal right now,
We're
which is
happy. Yeah.
fantastic.
I'm not a numbers guy either. I wish Doc was here because I just blink and look stupid and look at him and say, what does this mean? But yeah, no, we're excited, and we have how many weeks do we have about we have a little time left.
You got about 2
Yeah,
weeks.
it's and I like to give a shout out to David Hyde, our PR expert who guides us through our Kickstarter campaigns. David does a lot of independent comic books, and he's done all our toys. It's hard, it's bandwidth is hard getting people to, there are prisoner fans out right there right now who want toys who do not know about us. It's just, there's a lot of noise to break through. So
I know, and
yeah.
that's such a thing. Like I love getting opportunities to talk to creators. Kind of like I said at the beginning of the show, talking to the father son duo for Patriot Force and their
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Those are
Just seeing
O-ring,
some
right?
great. They started out doing customizing 4-inch figures,
Yeah.
but this current Kickstarter is another 1/12 scale,
Oh, okay, cool.
uh,
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
representing real veterans from the
Oh, that's
Iraq and
right.
Afghanistan
Yeah.
engagements. So
Love that.
very very cool line. And I was talking to the father Ryan over Joe Fest. He had a whole lot of really great conversations with everyone, and I kind of want to ask you the same questions now. Going into the rest of this year, you guys are definitely set for San Diego Comic-Con, but are there other conventions or other events that you guys are planning to go, not only to showcase Laurel and Hardy, but also post prisoner
Yeah.
campaign, getting that word out, getting that awareness for your toys?
Yeah. In a previous life, I was the marketing manager for a horror movie network, and I was on the road at conventions all the time. And it's hard work, man. I think we're not quite there yet because I don't want to do it anymore. It's too. We go to Comic Con. We always do a panel. It's been a great panel. It's called Indie Toy Makers Unite. We talk with
Mhm.
people like Bill and Chris and Brian at Super 7. And we this year our focus, because tariffs have been so insane, our focus is on creative. So our panelists for San Diego Comic Con are more sculptors, painters. This is the work process. Because there are some days where we don't feel like how the hell do you tell people how to kickstart crowdfund something when things are so chaotic, right? So we have Comic-Con. We're going to focus on creative conversation versus a crowdfunding or business conversation.
Okay.
I think we'll build up Wandering Planet to a point where we can do conventions. Doc is always wanting to do them. It's so hard for me to man a booth. I've done my time in the trenches, man, and it's exhausting. We do have a web store finally going to launch with our fulfillment company. And we're going to kind of manage that like pop-ups, So, okay, Prisoner Wave 2 is done. here's the pop-up store. Come get the extra stock while we have it. We'll close that down. And then, oh, here's the Nancy Drew pop-up store. I suspect we're going to work with Big Bad Toy Store more and more. We have an exclusive planned with them in the next 6 months. I'm excited about that. I can't say what it is, but Big Bad's been really good to us. And as a consumer, I love them because I can pre-order stuff. I can ship it all at the same time. Yeah, so we're getting out there slowly. You know, Doc has a family, and I have 3 other jobs, and he has 2 other jobs. So we just have to pace ourselves. But we do love when we meet and talk with fans of the toys or just fans of these shows that we love. Yeah.
Well, that's why I love having opportunities like this and inviting you guys on, even if it's a smaller platform. I just kind of like take my own stuff and I just share it across the all the social media aspects that I can. And
Appreciate
you know, I feel like it's my easiest way I can contribute is just shooting my mouth off, and I do that enough times. You ask my wife about it, but Carrie kind of helped me out here, or helped us both out with the math. 170% funded with 14 days. So I mean, that's
pretty awesome.
Fantastic. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. And like you said, there could be some other surprises we see in the next couple of days. So
yeah, we're working on some more fun accessories to pack into those boxes because it says Ultimate, right? So it should be some really fun stuff and a lot of display and play and
Cool.
But yeah, thanks everybody. I thank you so much, man.
Thank you for giving me 2 hours of your time. I really appreciate that.
Fun deep dive. Yeah, and more to come. We have another 1/12 scale figure. We knew Laurel and Hardy, Prisoner, and this mystery thing we're going to hit. And I think it's going to blow people's minds. I think we have one coming that has been itching for a toy for 40 years and on deck.
Can't wait to hear about it. Well, for everyone who was watching tonight, thank you so much for your comments and interaction. I do want to give a shout out to another friend of mine here in the area, Roll Keeper. Gavin, if you ever watch anything on YouTube about toy community and stuff, you're probably going to see Roll Keeper have a comment in the chat.
Oh, I love it.
This guy is like a multitasking savant.
Good to meet you.
I can't figure out how he does it, but
and thank you for backing. Yeah, amazing.
But so everyone on the Replay Squad, and also again watching, in the description for this stream is going to be the link for the Kickstarter. Shout out to all your socials between Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. There's multiple ways people can get information from you guys, as well as just looking at the Kickstarter page. You guys are providing updates in that tab as well. So Kickstarter
updates and our Instagram are probably the most active for us. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, Carrie, I think you said it best. Thank you very much, and appreciate all the information.
Thank you, guys.
Information.
Yeah.
So I'll close this out here by once again thanking everyone. Thank you, Gavin, for your time.
Thank you.
Please
my
say
pleasure.
Hello to Doc.
I will.
And everyone else. Be seeing you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That one's me. Fear.